Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Peter speaking. Okay, so it's Saturday morning, time for another relationship story, and this one's a little bit different. I'll explain why. I've had this story for about 2-3 months now, and I kept going back to it and looking at it, but to be honest with you, it was such a challenge to actually lay it out in a way that I could read it to you, because the guy who sent me the story is Scottish, and no offence to any Scots people watching, but I really had to translate a lot of it. I'll give you an example. Part of the story, he'd say something like, I went to her room and chapped her door. And I thought, chapped her door? What's he doing? So I literally had to go and look up these words, and chapped is actually the Scottish word for knocked. So we went to knock her door, he chapped her door. So I had to literally translate the whole story, and the way it was written, you just wouldn't have got it. So I've actually taken 3 hours, and I'm not exaggerating there, 3 hours to put this story together. I hope it comes across quite nicely as I intend it for you. And the other thing that's different about this story is most of the stories that I get are from guys who are kind of 40 plus. I've got stats on the channel, and the majority of my viewers are anywhere between 50 and 65. This guy is a young guy, he's 26. So he's telling the story in a slightly different way. I haven't changed the story, I've just rewritten it so that everybody would understand it. So I don't have to give you any background on it either. You'll understand the background on both the girl and the guy when I read the story out to you. So here we go. I'm 26, I currently live in Glasgow, and I work around 80 to 100 hours a week. I only have 4 days off if I'm lucky. I had a long-term relationship with a girl, at a young age that ended when I was 21. So after that relationship ended, I wanted to live a little. I had been told about Pattaya, which seemed to be the ideal place to visit. Preeda, that means joyful in Thai, that's the girl's name, was 23, she had 1 son. I was 24 when we met in Pattaya. She was from Royet in the north of the country. My friend Kevin and I decided to go to Pattaya after everything we had heard. I convinced him to go with me, so we booked up. We made the journey from Glasgow, the exciting journey from Glasgow to Bangkok via Dubai. We were so exhausted but could not wait to get out and explore Pattaya. After all, this was not Benidorm. We had pre-booked a taxi that took us to our hotel in Pattaya. It was the Amari Nova Suites, which was really nice. Kevin and I had booked a suite with 2 bedrooms, a lounge kitchen and all the mod cons. Needless to say, it was a real treat for 2 young guys coming from Glasgow. Eventually we get to the hotel. Kevin is very tired, but as I worked long hours, I was not feeling too bad. We decided, tired or not, we were not going to waste any time and we were going to head straight out of the hotel to explore Pattaya. We took literally 20 steps from the front door and we see a small stall selling fruit, bearing in mind they'd never been to Thailand before. The girl selling the fruit was absolutely beautiful, but with a Thai man. The lady smiles and winks at us, which was the start of things to come. We eventually end up in Walking Street, which was a haze of bright neon lights and so much noise, but it was very exciting. We first go into a go-go bar and paid over the odds due to us being a bit naive. We were buying older women drinks. In fact, any lady who asked for a drink, we bought them one. We both had a girl on each knee. It was an expensive night out, but we still had a lot of fun. We decided we're not going to make the same mistake twice. On the second night in Pattaya, we headed for the Pattaya beer garden just before Walking Street. As we both sat there having a drink, a young English guy approached us and asked if he could sit with us. I immediately thought something is going on here and I didn't like the situation, but we got chatting and he was okay. His name was Dave. He told us he lives in China and he teaches English, but he was asking lots of questions. Where are you staying? How long are you here for? Questions that raised red flags. Anyway, Dan insisted he would show us around as we had told him about our experience on the first night. We drank up and we headed to Walking Street, hitting the go-go bars with Dan. Going in more confident, we sit down. Girls were constantly coming over to us and asking for us to buy them drinks. Dan says, no, we are just here for a beer and maybe later. We learned that night how to keep our bar bills low. After a short time of these girls giving us a lot of attention, one girl in particular coming over to speak with me, she was very cute, so I thought, why not? I'm on vacation, on holiday. I'm here to enjoy myself and bought her a lady's drink. Dan told me you won't find a nicer girl than this one. Both Kevin and Dan persuaded me to take this little cutie back to the hotel, which I did, and needless to say, I had a great night. The next morning we exchanged numbers and she went on her merry little way. So day 3 comes along and we had a very nice meal at the hotel. explored Pattaya a bit, and eventually that evening we headed down to Walking Street and into a few go-go bars. Towards the end of the night, we stumble upon Insomnia above I Bar. What a place, packed to the rafters, full of good-looking girls. The looks we were getting were unreal. This just does not happen back home in Glasgow. Young girls with older men by their sides looking at us like they wanted rescued. I speak with a few real nice looking girls when eventually this young cutie grabs my arm. I take one look and think, oh my God, I must have died in Glasgow and I've actually gone to heaven. Eventually her friend comes over and we have a few drinks. She was just so cute but a little difficult to communicate with as she spoke hardly any English. After a really good night, we headed back to the hotel to have a night of madness with the girls. The next morning comes around and we wake up to find Kevin is missing. At around 1 p.m, Kevin comes into the room and tells me there is a family emergency at home in Glasgow and that he has booked a flight home for that night. So I tell this to Preeda that I need to go and have lunch with Kevin to discuss his trip home. So that night, I step out of the hotel and I think to myself, here I am, a guy 6,000 miles from home, alone in Pattaya. What do I do? I called Preeda and asked her if she would like to meet up for a few drinks, which of course she was more than happy to do so. I spent the next several days and nights with Preeda and I was on my own. She was a lot of fun and I started to really fall head over heels for her. Preeda was just amazing to be with. I don't know any other way to describe her. By this time, Preeda had pretty much moved into my hotel. We go off and do all the touristy things as a couple, going to the Tiger Park, Sanctuary of Truth, the Thai concerts. What a great experience I had over the next 2 weeks with Preeda. Preeda had picked up a very small amount of English in the short time we had spent together. I was impressed how smart she was. Eventually my time in Pattaya had come to an end. My taxi was on its way to the hotel to take me back to Bangkok. Preeda wouldn't stop crying. We genuinely had built a bond between us over the fortnight, or at least that's what I thought. I get back to Glasgow, meet up with Kevin, fill him in with everything that happened after he left, including my time with Preeda. Within minutes, we had decided then and there to book another trip to Pattaya the following March. I eagerly get back to work to pay for our next trip. At the same time, I was communicating with the girls on dating websites and met a lovely girl in Glasgow. This was around October. I spoke to Preeda every day and this was becoming a real challenge trying to hide from the girl I was now seeing. So he's got a girlfriend in Glasgow and he's still talking to Preeda through social media and he's starting to find that bit difficult now. I tried to break it off. Preeda seemed devastated, probably because she knew I was coming back in March. Deep down, I knew I couldn't completely cut the ties with Preeda and called her when I was at work. Midway through December, Preeda had some news. She told me she was pregnant. It was my baby. I had my suspicions and tried to be level-headed. I was kept updated on any news she had and I told her I wanted to know 100% that it was mine before I took any responsibility for the child. A few weeks later, Preeda was due to go for a scan but needed funds to do this. She asked me to send her 6,000 baht, which I reluctantly sent her. About a week later, I see a photograph of her in what looks like a hotel room on social media. I question her about it. She tells me it was a doctor's surgery. I was not sure what to believe and left sometime later. Preeda produced a scan. The scan had her date printed at the top corner, August 2019, which means the baby could not be mine as the date simply did not match up. I challenged Preeda about the dates and how the child could not have been mine. Preeda became angry and asked me why I didn't believe her. I explained that you cannot be pregnant for a year. It just would not sink into her head that I being the father of the baby was impossible, but eventually she finally got the message. Preeda appeared to be devastated and told me that she no longer wanted the child. We discussed what she was going to do as I still very much cared for Preeda as a friend. I sent her a few more thousand baht to help her out but decided it had to end right now as I had my girlfriend in Glasgow. And when I go back to Pattaya in March, I was not going to contact Preeda whatever happens. March came along and I had an emotional farewell with my partner in Glasgow. Our Thailand trip was booked before I met her, so again Kevin and myself headed over to Thailand. We checked into the same hotel in Pattaya. This time we were determined to make up for lost time after Kevin had to return to the UK early on his last trip. First night out we hit all the go-go bars and we really didn't hold back at all. The windmill go-go is unreal, and we found great similar bars down alleys, absolutely amazing. As the night went on, I had an idea. I knew where Preeda lived and it was quite close to Pattaya Hospital. I decided we should go there, visit her just for old time's sake. So we went at 3 a.m. and I knocked the front door of her small condo. She seemed very happy to see us. There she was, cute as ever. She gets stressed and comes to the hotel with us. I wonder what happened to I am not going to ever meet up with her again. Anyway, once in the bedroom, Preeda wanted to make love, which I didn't really intend to continue that side of the relationship, as I just wanted to be friends again. We both got so drunk we eventually did the dirty deed. This time I used protection, which Preeda wasn't that pleased about. I wonder why. The next morning, unlike my last visit, I tried to get Preeda to leave. That sad look in her face, she knew things between us were just not the same as on my last trip. Preeda eventually leaves the hotel. Kevin and I catch up on things Kevin missed out on before. We visited the Million Year Stone Park, water parks, etc. That evening, Preeda texts to say she had a cousin and would love to meet Kevin. So we decided to meet up later, after the go-go bars, of course. Our final destination was I-Bar, where Preeda and Aom are waiting for us. Instantly, Kevin and strike up a great relationship. Seems young and new to the Pattaya bar scene, but Preeda was there to show her the way of the world. I'm happy to see Kevin and getting on, and we all have a great night out. As the night goes on, I tell Kevin that I'm going back to the hotel alone, as I'm starting to feel bad for my partner back home in Glasgow. I lie and tell Preeda I'm off to the 7-Eleven and I head back to the hotel. The next morning I wake to find Kevin and in the hotel at around lunchtime. Preeda texts me and asks what happened to me last night. I let her know I just wanted to be alone. I invite Preeda over as is here and we have a chat. I tell Preeda that I have a girlfriend and I would stay friends with her, friends with Preeda. The next night we hit Walking Street and again I come across a stunning girl in the Sapphire Club, completely different girl now. I tell Kevin I must see this girl before I go. She was stunning with a capital S. When in Rome, as they say. So off we go back to I-Bar and guess who's there? No prizes if you guess correctly. Yes, Preeda and at their usual table. So again we have a great night, but Preeda seems on edge, maybe because I disappeared the night before. Well, after a while, I tell Kevin my plans. I'm going back to the Sapphire Club for the girls. So this time I tell Preeda I'm off to the toilet, and in the crowd, I make sure Preeda can't see me and I head for the exit out the door. I make my way over to Sapphire Club. I sit for a drink and talk to this lovely girl. Before long, I've paid her bar fine and we are making our way back to the hotel. The next morning I wake up knowing and Kevin are next door, so remember they got a suite, guys, so there's two doors that come out onto the lounge, not two separate rooms. We get dressed. I tell the new girl that Kevin and I have plans today. The Sapphire Club girl insists she would come with us, but I quickly tell her there is no need to wait on us, as Kevin and I will spend the day together as friends. She gets ready and sits in the living room where we both have breakfast. Suddenly I hear movement from Kevin's room and it's She looks down the small hall and stares at me. The Sapphire girl, she dashes back into the room, which I think nothing of. I try to get the Sapphire girl to leave while at the same time being polite. Eventually, what felt like hours, she leaves. I close the door and 20 seconds later, my door is being hammered. I open the door to none other than Preeda and two of her friends, which had jumped on the scooter to join in. Preeda is raging and anger gives me a terrible look and runs for my room looking for evidence of the Sapphire girl. Had called Preeda and told her what was going on. I told Preeda we didn't do anything and we were just friends, and I calmed down the situation. We eventually had a good afternoon. For the rest of my holiday, I decided to be a bit more mature and I decided to enjoy the company of Preeda over that to getting drunk every night, taking girls out of go-go bars. Leaving Thailand this time was emotional as ever. I somehow felt completely empty inside. Had I fallen in love with Preeda, or was it all an illusion? Sadly, Preeda and I no longer speak. I did find out after some time that Preeda now lives in Bahrain with her new boyfriend. I have a further update. My partner and I visited Phuket in March 2020 as we could not go to Pattaya, as I may have been spotted by some of the girls who remembered me. We flew out on the 11th of March, had a great week before the lockdown restrictions affected us and in our second week. Sadly, our return flights were cancelled and we made an expensive early return trip home. I hope Thailand can survive this terrible crisis so that we can all return again. You'll never be happier than when you're in the land of smiles. Peter, I hope you can join the dots together on your channel. It would be brilliant to have met you in Pattaya for a pint. Yeah, I mean, I'll have a pint with you if I meet you in Pattaya. So there you go, guys. That's a little bit of a different story. As I said at the beginning, he's only 26, and well done for putting that story together. And if you've got a story, please send it to me, and I'll try my best to read it out on these, what seems to be a regular now, these Saturday relationship stories. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you for the news roundup on Wednesday.